Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce our topic again, and then I will briefly introduce our outline, and I will also mention a couple of things about my professional background in sustainability. And then I'll probably talk about 45, 50 minutes, and then we will have enough time for discussion, Q&As. So while I'm talking, maybe you can take some kind of notes and think about possible questions you would like me to answer at the end. And basically, this is our plan. Okay, so like you can see here on the screen, today I'll be talking about overproduction and overconsumption, and I will introduce both these barriers as realistic obstacles to faster transition to circular economy. And here is our outline. So first of all, I would like to introduce two main terms, and these are linear economy versus circular economy. And I know that you have also other amazing speakers, and maybe some topics are overlapping, but I will give you my definitions and provide some kind of insights from my recent research about linearity and circularity. Also, I would like to clarify why we need a transition to circular. So what are the main problems? What are the things that we are facing in today's world? And I will be mainly focused on fashion industry. And when I say fashion industry, I really refer to textile and apparel industry as a whole. As I said, then I will be discussing about overproduction, overconsumption. I will share also some parts of my recent research activities. And then I will provide some kind of new insights on the waste and how we can manage waste collection in more satisfactory ways. At the end, I would like to close this short lecture with discussing current solutions, retail solutions, and what kind of trends we can see in retail that are confirming that basically some retailers already transitioned to circular, and how we can learn more about their experiences, what we can take from their own story in order to become more circular. And after that, like I said, we will have time for Q&As. A little bit about my background. So I graduated from Ohio State University in 2019, and my core research area was sustainability, but mainly corporate side of the sustainability paradigm. So what I mean by that, the majority of my research activities include sustainability reporting, compliance, sustainable policies, both environmental and economic ones, also social ones, and also supply chain activities. So not only businesses in the corporate headquarters, but also supply chain management in the fashion industry. During my graduate school days, I was teaching branding and corporate social responsibility classes. I was also developing sustainability course for Ohio State University, and I was certified for sustainability consulting. And during that time, I did some consultation mainly for American brands, Abercrombie and Fitch and Nike. But also I was consulting Ohio State athletic merchandise because they are also committed to accept more green certificates and to provide some kind of more sustainable or improved solution for their athletic merchandise. Also, like you heard in the introduction, another PhD I have from University of Arts in Belgrade, Serbia. I'm originally from Central Europe, and I also have a bachelor degree in business. Okay, so here is a big topic, linearity, and what it means from the perspective of fashion industry, right? So if you think about our industry as a whole, and now I'm not just talking about fashion industry, I'm really referring to every industry that you can think of. They are functioning in very linear way. So what I mean by linear, things are sourced, and then the people are producing products, and basically we as consumers are consuming products, and then we are discarding them. And if we are thinking about fashion industry, rarely, if ever, we really consider what are the ingredients of the product, unless you're working in the field, right? But the average consumer most often don't think about the ingredients. And in order to make any kind of garment, we are using huge amounts of water, energy. Of course, we need some kind of materials. Either they are man-made materials like polyester or natural materials like cotton, but we need some kind of inputs. And of course, there are many dyes that we need to finish our product. So there are so many ingredients that are needed for any kind of production cycle in the fashion industry. And then if you think about the life cycle of the garment, very often garments in today's fashion industry don't survive 3 or 4. Basically, we are wearing them 3 or 4 times on average. And why this is happening? Because the quality is lower. Fast fashion products are very cheap and affordable, and therefore they're worn for less amount of the time. And the problem is that life cycle of the garment is very short. So we are taking natural sources, we are producing garments, we are discarding these garments, and the life cycle of each garment is very, very short. So very often in America, statistics are showing us that consumers are owning their garment just for a year. So this is really problematic, because if you think about history of the clothing, people used to possess their clothing for a very long time, and they even transferred their clothing as their own personal possession from generation to generation. So we don't have that kind of strong bond any longer, and consumers are treating clothing as something very disposable, unfortunately. And therefore, we have this kind of linear system that is functioning, like I said, in most of the industries, but in fashion industry particularly. If you want to focus on statistics, latest statistics are showing that we are just 9% circular currently. So I know that circularity is a buzzword, and that's why many people think that we already exist and function in circular economy. However, I have to be very realistic, and maybe I'm going to disappoint you with this statement, but statistics are indicating that just 9% is basically our number for circularity in today's world. And there is a good side of that fact, and this is that we have 90% basically to improve, right? Room for improvement is 90%. So this is a good thing. So we have to do more things in order to transition to circular. And what I mean by circular, I'm just referring to definition of Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And by circularity, they really refer to one closed loop system where things are used and reused, and therefore that loop is closed. This is the only way how we can sustain our lives on this planet. Otherwise, if we keep sourcing the amount of resources we are using nowadays, in 20 years, we're gonna need 5 planets. So this is really concerning fact. So basically, when we are thinking about circular systems, and now I'm just talking about fashion industry in particular, there are only 2 ways that are available that we can use to close our loop in the production side of the industry. So basically, on the left-hand side, you can see biological cycle, and then on the right-hand side, you can see a technical cycle or industrial cycle. So in order to have a completely circular system in the fashion industry, we need to create our garments in the way that they are either naturally compatible with the biological cycle, or that they are technically recyclable. In the first cycle, where we are basically returning garments into the nature, all garments have to be 100% biodegradable. So what I mean by that? I mean that every ingredient that we are using to produce, let's say, a pair of jeans, have to be compatible with the biological cycle. And in that way, for example, if we have 100% cotton jeans, and if we have zippers and fasteners and buttons that are made also from some kind of organic materials, we can make sure that once we are facing the end of the life and we want to discard that garment, even if we are discarding that garment in the landfill, eventually it will decompose. So I was Googling recently brands that are existing around the world and that have 100% biodegradable products, and unfortunately I couldn't find many. So there is one amazing brand, maybe you're familiar with that brand. It's called Non-Nasties. It's Indian brand, and they have 100% biodegradable jeans. I was really amazed with their brand story, and I think they're a really disruptive brand because they are thinking about end of life even before they design the garment. So for example, in the case of their jeans products, they are made from 100% organic cotton, and they're using also natural thread, not polyester thread, and all their zippers and buttons are made from coconut shell. So this is example of biodegradable product that can safely be returned to the nature, and in that way, that company is closing the loop in a realistic way by having 100% biodegradable product. However, this is ideal story. Unfortunately, in our industry, rarely, if ever, products are 100% biodegradable. This is really exception. So most often we can think about closing the loop through an industrial cycle or through technical cycle. And in that way, we can close the loop by creating product that is 100% recyclable. So ideally, that product should be made from pure material. So either, let's say, 100% cotton or 100% polyester or some other fiber, but we preferably need product that is pure or virgin. And this is not the reality, definitely, in the fashion industry, because most of the products, I don't want to say all the products, because you see there are exceptions, but most of the products are made from monster blends, so from some kind of blended materials. So we have, let's say, 98% cotton jeans, and then there is 2% spandex that is used to make that jeans appear skinnier or be more elastic, and therefore this is a realistic obstacle for technical recycling. And I didn't mention also that if you want to close the loop in a technical way, there are two abilities to recycle. Either we can recycle garments using mechanical recycling or chemical recycling. I know you had a speaker who was talking about recycling, so I assume that you are familiar with this concept, but I will just briefly mention that if we want to, let's say, jeans to recycle mechanically, we would shred the material, and then we are basically downcycling that product. And by downcycling, I mean lowering the quality of the product. So we don't have jeans any longer, but let's say we have material that can be used for insulation or for carpet manufacture or for whipping, polishing materials, and etc. And then if we are closing the loop using chemical recycling, then we basically are breaking blended material in monomers, and we are extracting, let's say, cotton and polyester separately. And there are really fantastic circular solutions if you're talking about chemical recycling and some kind of inventions in that area. Let's say there is a material called aconyl. It's chemically recycled nylon that is made from fishing nets. So if you want to think about, let's say, chemical recycling, which is much more advanced method than a mechanical one, I would say that we can think about chemical recycling being method of upcycling, because you are almost upgrading waste and you are creating a product that is higher in quality compared to the input, right? So in the mechanical, you had the opposite trend. You had the higher quality of the input, and then you're downcycling that product. So you can see that solutions exist, but unfortunately, statistics are showing that only 2% of the garments are recycled, either mechanically or chemically. So again, there is a huge room for improvement, around 98%. So, like I said, we know that circularity is a buzzword, but there is also realistic need for transitioning to circular. And I would just like that to say that my point of view is that currently circular economy remains more talk than walk. Circular economy and transition to circular is on our wish list, but there are so many steps that need to be taken before we really transition to circular. And I would say that if currently as a society we are 9% circular, there is 90%, 91% for room for improvement. I would say that we will become circular society when we have 50% of the procedures that are circular and not 9. So loop is not closed. Products are rarely 100% biodegradable or 100% recyclable, and we need solutions. We need solutions to close a loop in either of these two ways. You're probably aware that United Nations established different goals on our path towards more sustainable economy. And I will just mention 3 goals here. So the first one is responsible consumption and production. And I will just share brief statistics about US landfills. You can see here that 5% of total landfill is considered to represent textile waste. From that 5% of textile waste in America, researchers are claiming that 95% of products that end up in the landfill are recyclable. So the question is why we are wasting something that can be used as a food for next production cycle, right? So basically we are discarding precious waste that can be used in a certain way as a new input for the production. So therefore, we really need to find some kind of solutions to prevent waste generation. Also, the second problem in our industry, and a huge problem, is carbon emission. I don't know if you are aware of the fact that now most of the brands are, not most, all the brands in the world, I have to correct myself, they are required to disclose how they are reducing their carbon emission. So this is something, even though sustainability reporting is still voluntary in the fashion industry, carbon emission reduction is required, it's mandatory. So you can see that more and more brands are publishing information about carbon emission and carbon reductions. So currently our emissions in fashion industry are equal to car industry. And this is really surprising fact to me. And lastly, but not less important, if we are talking about clean water, pollution in the industry is huge. We know that supply chain in many countries is not regulated, particularly if we are talking about waste, chemical waste that is discarded in the drinking water. So this is a huge problem again. So there are two parts of regulation. There is regulation that is related to safety chemicals in the consumer goods. And for example, in the recent research I conducted, I saw that more and more brands are publishing restricted chemicals in the final consumer goods, but rarely, if ever, they publish information about restricted chemicals in their supply chain, unless they operate exclusively in Europe, because in Europe there is a law that requires brands to publish this kind of information. And this is our reality. We need to face it in order to move towards creating more sustainable industry in the future. Also, here is our first barrier and a serious obstacle to circular economy. And I would like to talk about overproduction. Even though I can talk for hours about overproduction in the fashion industry, I will try just to provide some kind of main insights from my research. So what I mean by overproduction, on the recent slide I didn't mention, currently we have 7.5 billion people that inhabit our world. And there is a prediction that in 10 years, our global population will increase for 1 billion. So we will have around 8.5 billion people in 2030. So currently, if we think about a year before COVID crisis, so 2019, we had 150 billion garments that were manufactured globally. So it means that on average, fashion industry as a whole produced 20 garments on average per individual. And this is really crazy number, I would say, because guess what? Only 70% of garments that are produced are sold. So what we are doing with 30% of the garments that basically are never sold? And this is the question. And then why the brands are producing 30% more garments than in reality consumers are needing, right? So this is a really conundrum. So currently, like I said, brands are not required to report what they're doing with their waste. I was checking when I was start preparation for this lecture, I checked the Fashion Transparency Index, index that was published in 2020. And that index contained information for 250 brands. And only 5% of the brands, or 11 brands, disclosed the volume of unsold textile merchandise. So just in the case of 11 brands, we know, hypothetically, we know what is happening with their unsold merchandise. The question is, though, what we don't know. And I would just like to clarify what we don't know. First, we have two kind of waste that is generated, waste streams that are generated in the fashion industry. So the first waste stream is created in a pre-production cycle. And I will just mention that if we are talking about cutting room, when you are creating the garment and then you're cutting the garment, unless the manufacturer is using zero waste cutting method, the waste that is created in the cutting room solely is 20% of the fiber, right? So this is, for example, one huge hole, and we don't know much about that because brands are not currently required to disclose that information. I don't know even if they are tracking that information, to be quite honest, because we don't have data. So we don't know anything about production waste. all we know, like I said, hypothetically again, because we have to deal with data that is published by retailers, and it's really scarce data. And I don't know if anyone is auditing that data as well. So I would say that it is not 100% reliable data. But we know that huge amount of waste is created just because product was not sold. And the major problem in the industry is created among fast fashion brands. So if you think about Zara, or if you think Spanish brand, fast fashion retailer Zara, or Swedish brand H&M, fast fashion retailer, or Topshop, ASOS, Forever 21, these are all fast fashion brands. What they are doing, they are producing 52 micro trends on annual level. So if in the history of fashion we had major 4 seasons, now we have 52 micro trends on annual level, and basically consumers are almost pushed or forced to change a trend weekly. And this is another problem that is stimulating both overproduction and overconsumption, because if you think about that, this is a vicious cycle. So you purchase something on Monday, and then next Monday you have a new trend launch among these fast fashion retailers. So for young consumers that want to be trendy, really they have to consume more and more frequently in order to keep up with the industry. And just a brief comparison, if you think about fast fashion retailer, so for example, Zara, Spanish brand, produced 1.6 billion garments in 2019. And let's say, just for a comparison, Allen Fisher, this is a big corp, a US brand. They are considered to be among sustainable brands. They are producing 4 million garments a year. So you can see how big is the discrepancy between fast fashion producers and, let's say, I don't want to say sustainable producers, because I don't think that any brand is fully sustainable. But let's say improved producers, right? So this is really a huge discrepancy that we can see. So what is happening with unsold merchandise? Brands are burning merchandise, and basically they don't want to resell that merchandise. Rarely they want to resell, because they believe that they want to protect their brand and that kind of aura that they have, especially luxury brands. And therefore, let's say Burberry brands 35 millions of unsold merchandise in 2017, and H&M destroyed 4.3 billion worth inventory in 2018. So it's not just burning clothes is not just happening in the mass market sector or fast fashion sector, it is also happening among luxury brands. And therefore, like I said, if we know that these clothes can be used in a certain way, why we are not closing the loop, right? Why we are burning merchandise in 21st century. So the other part of the story, and I would say that this production and overproduction and overconsumption are really complementary, and they are part of the whole. So what is happening among consumers? So the world trends are showing us that our industry, like fashion industry, made $2.8 trillion in 2019. So these are statistics before COVID pandemic. So a couple of days ago, I was trying to see latest statistics just to see if the retail industry is really dead, because I can see these claims somewhere in the media, and I think they are funny, because you know what? Fashion retail is not dead, far from that. Even during COVID pandemic, there is steady increase of 5.5%. In clothing consumption. And now I'm talking about a global scale, not just America. So 5.5%. And I know this is a cumulative average. So we know that consumption is not equally distributed among world nations or even continents, but on average, statistics are telling us that there is a steady increase in the sales. So retail is not dead. Clothing consumption is ongoing process, and people just accumulating their clothes more and more and more. And I will show you more about actual numbers. So basically here in America in 2019, I found some data. This is not data from my research, but it's general data. I think I found this data on the Forbes website. They said that approximately 107 billion units of apparel and 14.5 billion pairs of shoes were purchased around the world in 2019. So again, if you're talking about averages, it seems like every person on the planet, which is not the case, right, purchased 13 garments and 2 pairs of shoes on an annual level. If we are just focusing on America, I would say that the majority of spendings are happening during back to school season. And back to school season is happening in August. And on average, one student in America spend around $153 on clothes, and then $83 on shoes, $53 on some kind of branded garments. So there is ongoing overconsumption. In order to find out more about actual data that is related to my student and their spendings, I conducted longitudinal research through survey, and I collected around 755 responses from my own students, and I was investigating 3 cycles: how many things they are purchasing, how many things they are actually wearing, and how many things they are discarding during one school semester. So my sample was tracked during 3 months period. And here is the data. So this is data from my own recent research. So you can see here the 755 students that were tracked during 3 months period. And the volume of clothes they purchased during 3 months was 10,931 garments. So mean per student was around 40 or 50 garments. So on average, my students purchased that amount of garments. And total expenditure was almost $800,000. And average price per item that was purchased during that period of time was $70. So what I found in this, I call this clothing mountain research. And in reality, it is clothing mountain, because you can see here that clothing that was actually worn was just 60% of the clothing that was purchased. And what is happening with this 40% that is basically left over? So 70% was unnecessary purchase because they purchased garments and actually they never worn them. So these are inactive items. And then 23% of the items that were purchased, they were discarded after 3 or 4 times, just because they are lower in the quality and they cannot survive a couple of machine washings. And even if they want to wear them, I was asking them even for qualitative inputs. They said even if we want to wear them, the quality is not good enough to keep that clothes. So another problem that I discovered in this study is that rarely, if ever, students are using they're using clothing collection bins for clothes disposal. Most often they're using trash bin. And here in America, for example, every household have trash bin for a regular base, but also we have a trash bin for recyclable products. But unfortunately, those products don't include clothing. So if you want to recycle or donate, you have to drive to the first available collection box to discard properly items. Because if you discard them in your trash bin, it will be transferred directly to the landfill, and we don't want to do that. So I was asking students how they are discarding their items, and like I said, they are most often using trash bin just because they don't have convenient places for or bins to recycle or to discard their items in a more safe way. So this is another problem that can be solved on a municipality level. I will be talking about that in a while. So what are some kind of waste managing strategies that we can see in society today? And now I'm just talking about America because I'm familiar with what is happening here. Last 4 years I'm living in America, so I know what is happening here in this country. So let's say that if you're talking about waste management strategies, we really refer to methods of reuse, recycle, resell, or repurposing. And like I said, most of the textiles that end up on the landfill are discarded because there was no convenient collection box near the household. So people are just trashing their clothes, even though it is in use condition. So there is a huge amount of clothes that has been trashed on annual level. Environmental Protection Agency statistics are showing that on average, US citizens are discarding 80 pounds of textiles annually. And that figure is increasing rapidly. So for example, one really great solution, this is a business-to-business solution that exists here in America, is called SMART. This is International Trade Association. They are based in Maryland, and they are collecting waste from not just households, but also from charities, from businesses, different businesses, and they are trading waste. So how they're trading waste? As a business, if you register, you can claim your waste, you can define your waste stream, and then you can either exchange your waste with someone else, or you can sell your waste. So this is really something that is very good solution for businesses, even to create profit from their waste, right? Also, the other thing that SMART Association is organizing is export of the secondary goods, but also production of new products, mainly in the whipping industry or insulation industry. So this is really great example of byproduct network. And this is indicator that yes, profit can be created from waste. We just need to rethink the waste and not just accept the fact that waste is something that should be trashed, but we really need to rethink how it can be used, maybe as an input for another production cycle. The things that are happening in America in terms of byproduct networks are not just sole solutions or limited solutions only to American society, because there are byproduct networks that exist around the world. Here are just two examples. So if you're thinking about, let's say, UK, there is a byproduct network between beer company that are producing beers, and then Marks and Spencer bread and sandwich factory that is selling their unsold bread or surplus bread, and then that local brewery is using that bread in order to produce beer. So this is, again, very good, very circular model of business. Another example that I found in Italy is Vigia wine leather, and that leather is alternative leather made from skin, grape skin. So there is a local winery. They are producing wine as a main product. And then there is a huge amount of grape skin that is created as a waste or byproduct. And that day byproduct is used to create wine leather. And as you know, most of the luxury brands ban or quit using animal skin. So this is a fantastic solution for luxury business that want to be also animal friendly. And therefore, this is a phenomenal circular solution for luxury brands. And you can see here that 2.5 kilograms of grape skin is needed to produce 1 square meter of wine leather. Another amazing solution, I don't know if you're familiar with Ellen Fisher. I was already mentioning that brand. This is a brand located in America. They are a big corporation, so they are certified by the third party for their sustainability efforts. And I will just mention briefly, I know this is completely out of our scope, but just to give you a tangible insight how many brands are B Corp certified. So we have also Patagonia, American brand that is B Corp certified. We have Atleta, American brand that is B Corp certified. I'm not aware that there are many certified brands that exist nowadays. So there is a huge also room for improvement in terms of sustainability certification. And I would say that this is an ongoing trend also in our industry. But unless there are circular solutions, I don't know how the business can become certified. So what Ellen Fisher is doing in order to be circular, at least partly circular. So like I said, on annual level, they're producing 4 million garments. And basically within their mainstream store, they have also small embedded store that is just based on resale methods, and it's called Renewed. And how they are incentivizing consumers to collect basically their unwanted merchandise. So they are giving $5 vouchers for every worn item. So let's say if I have currently 10 Ellen Fisher garments in my wardrobe, I can literally sell things I'm not wearing for $50. And I'm profitable because I didn't discard these items, but also the company is profitable because they're using these items to create something new or to resell. So when I say create something new, they make some kind of patchwork collections and they are mixing, for example, if the garment was has some kind of stains or holes, they're cutting garments in smaller pieces and they are creating patchwork collection. So currently they are offering patchwork bags, creating from the jackets or denim skirts. And in that way, they are basically using consumer waste in order to create something new and resell it. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a guest speaker from their company, Ellen Fisher. It was their general manager, and she said that Renewed business is profitable. So it means that even though just in last year they spent 1,100,000 just on incentives, they also created profit, and therefore they're going to continue operating in the same way. So what are some kind of retail strategies that I suggest are feasible for the retail sector? And these are now all the things that I'm researching currently. And I will just guide you briefly through each of them. So the first one is very obvious one, design for circularity. So how we can create the things that are not just created without deeper thinking, but how we can design things on the first place in order to fit them into either biological cycle or technical cycle. So how we can design things for circularity, how we can design them knowing and taking into account end of life. Many major houses today, they are designing beautiful products, but those products are not compatible with biological or technical cycle, and therefore, in the very beginning, they are creating waste that cannot be handled in the future because we literally don't have place to dispose waste any longer. And I would say that this is something that can be solved on design level. I'm not a designer, so I don't know if this is really counted now when things are created, but it should be counted more. The second thing, this is definitely something that I'm actively researching, is called retail dematerialization. And I don't know if you are familiar with the concept, and therefore I would like just to explain that briefly. So in the history, if you think about fashion industry, it is really product based industry. So we have products, these products are tangible, they are material, and they are consumed and disposed. But if you're talking about retail industry that is changed or transform nowadays, we really have service-oriented industry. So what I mean by service, it doesn't have to be, let's say, a retail brand that is selling the new goods. It can be a retail brand that is renting goods, or it can be basically a retail brand that is offering some kind of services. So I would just like to briefly talk about a couple of brands. So let's say we have Mud Jeans brand. This is a Dutch company, and they are leasing jeans. So in order to stimulate this kind of closing loop cycle where things are reused and they are not necessarily possessed, they are offering this kind of jeans that can be rented on an annual level. So you are paying $8 subscription monthly. So on annual level, you are paying somewhere around, I don't know, let's say $80 or something like that. So basically, in that package, you have a right as a consumer to change your jeans as much as you want, and you are not discarding them. So you are packing them in a package, you are bringing them back to the company, and you are renting a new pair of jeans. So it also satisfies consumer need for new and for trendy without having or making a purchase. Also, we have very profitable businesses like Rent a Runway or Rent a Wardrobe. These are rental businesses. And for example, Rent a Runway business in America is offering consumers a premium package where you can have unlimited rental for $100.30 a month. And what I mean by unlimited, you can rent whatever you want. Let's say you can rent monthly 3 bags, 4 shoes, or I don't know, 20 jeans or garments, any kind, right? So instead of purchasing things on monthly level for $100, you may subscribe to their service, and therefore you don't own your wardrobe any longer. You just rent it and change it. And this is something that young generation especially like here in, I know I'm talking to my students and they really like that idea. Also, what I'm referring about more here is also repair. So there are premium price brands like Nudie Jeans or Patagonia or even Levi's that are offering repairs. And therefore, consumers know if they purchase that premium products, they will have guaranteed repair that is free of charge. So for them, this is justification for new purchase. And I have, again, students that are just consuming Patagonia jackets, even though they might cost, like, let's say $300, but they are wearing them for 10 years. They are not replacing them. If they have a problem with a zipper or with a small hole, they can send their jacket to a retailer. They can repair that and return that to the customer. And therefore, they are prolonging the life of the product itself. And this is really fantastic solution. The third thing that we should consider is, of course, resell. So how we can, you remember I mentioned that we have 30% of things that are unsold. So how we can increase of the number or percentage of the things that are resold in the retail industry. And I would say that we still don't see that brands are selling their unsold merchandise in the outlets. There are brands that are doing that, but I would say that number of the garments that is offered is really limited. It should be just higher amount of clothes that is resold as the new clothes, or maybe products with some kind of failures. And also there are great secondhand networks here in US, Goodwill associations, they exist in every state. Or let's say Clothes Mentor or Once Upon a Child. These are networks for women or for kids, and you can sell your gently used clothing, and you can get some kind of store coupon. And this is something that moms are always consider when they are basically trading their old garments for new garments, especially for their kids. Very often in these stores, you can find even new merchandise. So it doesn't have to be something that was previously worn. It can be something that is completely new. But like I said, it can contain some kind of small failure or discolorization, but still it is really wearable garment. The fourth method of waste management strategy that we can see among brands, maybe I would say the greatest percent of the brands is using this kind of approach: recycling, most often upcycling, sometimes repurposing. And this is a common strategy among brands, even fast fashion brands, and H&M, Zara. Levi's also is collecting old jeans. They have also collection bins in San Francisco, and then they are participating in Blue Jeans Go Green program, where they are recycling, upcycling jeans and creating something new. So recently, for example, we purchased for our home small carpet made from denim pockets from Levi's collection. It was really something very sweet for kids' room, but also very socially responsible. And there are also great networks around the world. I don't know, maybe you're familiar with Redress. They are located in Hong Kong. And this is an environmental protection agency, but also they have design competition where students, designers are invited to create new collections that are made completely from textile waste. So they are trying to upgrade or upcycle garments that were previously discarded in order to create something really beautiful and new. And that product can even be traded for premium price. And like I said, I really think business-to-business solutions are byproduct synergy networks where you have different kind of businesses that are fused together in order to exchange or trade their surplus materials. And there are many examples. I'm just listing here a couple of companies that I'm familiar with because I was either collaborating with them or we were taking students to their stores in order to have some kind of experiential educational lecture or activity. Because I'm a teacher, I'm working at university, actively teaching students, and also I was invited by your university. I guess that this lecture would not be complete if I don't mention solution for educators and how we can promote circularity in our classrooms. So here are a couple of things that I'm doing with my students, and I think that this can be done universally, no matter where you are located, in which part of the world. So I would just briefly focus on 3 areas. So we have purchase level and things that can be taught to students about mindful purchasing. So how we can purchase really what we need and what not everything that we want, how we can rationalize our purchase. For example, students are required to create capsule wardrobe and create their wardrobe that is made from, let's say, 20 items and just wear them through the semester. On the youth level, we were supposed to organize mending workshops where students are encouraged to mend their clothing. And basically, instructors are showing them how to mend clothes, but unfortunately, these events are canceled because of COVID. And also, we have swapping events where students are bringing their unwanted merchandise and they are exchanging the same merchandise with their peers. Also, recently, UNT launched a professional attire resource closet where things can be donated by faculty and students. And then it contains blazers and shirts and professional attire. And with no cost, students can borrow that clothing for their interviews, job interviews. And I really think this is needed. And this is something that can be organized anywhere. And then how we can rethink the end of life. Recently, again, we had a drive kickoff. I'm trying to recall how we called that activity. It was organized by Soul for Souls, NGO. Again, students were donating their shoes that are really in mint condition, and shoes were donated for communities and people in need. So these are some kind of things that are organized currently at University of North Texas, or they are postponed after the COVID. And last thing, but again, not less important, we can see more containers that are marked for clothing collection. And we are just trying to stimulate students to discard their items properly, so it will not end up on the landfill, but instead it will end up in, let's say, some kind of NGO that is sorting unwanted clothes, like a smart byproduct network, and then they are just distributing products where they are needed the most. And my dear friends, I'm done. I hope that you enjoyed this talk, and now I'm ready to accept your questions, and I hope you have some questions for me. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
How can we do zero waste production?
Can you just please repeat your question? I cannot hear you properly. I'm sorry.
Okay, what is zero waste production? How can we do zero waste production?
Okay. I will try to answer this question the best way I can, because I'm not designer, but I did collaborate with different designers. I know that when they are creating their garments and they are laying their garments and creating their garment in the initial cycle, they are planning to reuse unnecessary parts. So let's say if they are cutting one t-shirt and they need, let's say, 80 centimeters of cotton material, but then the fiber is long, I don't know, 1 meter. So they are planning to use this 20 certain way, maybe to create front pocket or some kind of additional decor that they can use on the shirt in order to save that fabric, that small part of the fabric that was basically left over. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. And what is the difference between upcycle and downcycling?
Yes, thank you. This is a great question, and I'm sorry, I don't think that I defined that clearly. So basically, when we are talking about downcycling, you are degrading the initial input. What I mean by degrading, you are producing a product that is lower in the quality compared to your input. I will give you an example. So let's say if you want to downcycle your jeans, you're using jeans, final product as input, but then your final output will be shredded jeans that can be used for insulation, right? So this is compared to the quality of the first garment, this is downcycle quality, and therefore it has a lower quality, if that makes sense, right? So that can be used for insulation. And then upcycling is opposite trend, where you're using something like a fishing nets, and there you're chemically recycling your fishing nets in order to create absolutely fabulous material called Econyl, which is upgraded product in the quality, right? Because you had waste in a sense of fishing nets, and now you have upgraded recycled nylon. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. And give us another session, please.
I will. Thank you very much. I'm not checking chat box, so maybe you can ask your questions, just unmute yourself.
Yeah, no questions are found in the chat box. Participants, if you have any questions, you can directly post your question to Dr. Eva. Unmute yourself and you may ask your questions.
Any questions, comments, criticisms? People are very opinionated when we are talking about circular. So you may have maybe other speakers
Excuse
perspective.
me, ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think that this the process of recycling and upcycling requires a major change in the mindset of the consumers and the manufacturers to get it, enabled in a successful manner? What are your comments on this? Because basically, I'm from India, so a northern part of India. So, do you think this requires a lot of effort to change the mindset of the consumers? Basically, not in the West, but in the eastern part of the world.
Great comment. This is more like a comment than a question, and I must agree with you. I think it requires major mindset change, and therefore I really think that these are major obstacles for transition to circularity.
Because in India, what is happening? We are working on the research in sustainability research area and upcycling and recycling majorly only in the books and the theses are being made. But I think the actual practical knowledge needs to be communicated to the consumers in a much wider sense than just doing researches and seminars and this is my kind of thought process. Because when you talk
Absolutely.
about recycling, upcycling, the consumers in India are not very much aware and not very much, are promptly accepting it. And even the manufacturers, when you talk about zero waste production, the manufacturers also are not very ready to adapt those techniques which will lead to zero waste production and all.
Yes, I agree. These are realistic obstacles. Here, I can see some kind of solutions. There are basically labels you can put on a collection bin that, for example, this collection bin is just for 100 pure materials, or this collection bin is only for shoes. In that way, you cannot educate necessarily consumers. You just instruct them where to dispose things if you're talking about consumers. But then,
Right.
another obstacle, a huge obstacle currently, we didn't talk about labeling systems. Labeling systems require retailers only to disclose main material, and therefore even the shirt is let's say made from 98% cotton, 2% polyester. Sometimes they are mislabeling garments like 100% pure, and therefore you will discard them in one collection bin, and then you can make a complete disruption in the recycling system just because you didn't have properly labeled garment. So this is another whole story. So I really agree with you that we need to educate not only consumers, but also people who are in production systems, in manufacturing facilities, and it will take so many years because this is so new area, and I don't
But
think
I think the process has started and it might succeed after a few years. Maybe we are all just hopeful for it.
maybe. I think that this is a conundrum, and still we should have open conversation about the solutions. I don't think that we have realistic solutions yet.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Eva, there's a question in the chat box. Can you tell me what is biodegradable product and how can we produce?
Uh-huh. Okay, so biodegradable product is a product that is 100% organic, natural. So something that is 100% natural is something that is coming from the nature, right? So let's say if we have a cotton shirt that is pure virgin cotton, it is biodegradable product. If we have something that is made from hemp or from, I don't know, banana, it is biodegradable product because we can safely return that material to the nature. How we can produce those products? Well, we need to create first some kind of innovative fibers, and after that we can use these fibers to produce those products. Like I said, I'm no designer, but these are all great questions. Thank you for asking. And I was giving...
maybe I can add a point to this. The biodegradability is related to the material, the chemical material, what is made up of. So it's about natural or synthetic fibers. Synthetic fibers like polyester and nylon, they never degrade. Either you have to recycle in one way or other and reuse it. Whereas natural cellulosic and protein fibers, they biodegrade. Here, what biodegradability means is when you put it in soil, it decomposes. It may take different timing for each fiber or for each material, but it decomposes, and it could also serve like a fertilizer. So when you put cotton in the soil, it takes quite long time to decompose, and finally you can also use it as a fertilizer. The soil receives some nutrition from the material, the decomposing of the material. Hope it's clear.
Yeah, wonderful explanation. Yeah. But also then we have a problem, right? If you're using chemical dyes.
Yeah. Again, some chemicals are non-biodegradable and also cause many health hazards like carcinogenic and other type of pollution hazards. We must be careful with that too. So not only the fiber, the dyes and other chemicals used in the processing, everything, right from the raw material to the finished product, everything must be biodegradable.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Iva, for your nice presentation. And I have a question. Do you have any experience in your career, because you have been owning a brand, and you also have a research experience, and you have been working closely with industry also. So anybody in your career, have you given inputs like how to build a sustainable brand and how to promote it?
This is something we are trying to answer every day. I would say in my industry career, I did collaborate with many designers, and I was doing consulting for their brand development. And I would say that there are a couple of ways that you can use to bring more sustainable brand. First is local and light. And I really believe in that kind of philosophy where you are building something that is more like artisanal brand, right? So you have a limited number of garments, you're producing on very small scale, your collection is very well curated, you're investing in a quality and durability, and therefore you are more responsible. So I had the chance to collaborate with many smaller designers that are not so well known, but they are creating definitely improved products. Maybe these products are not compatible with biological or technical cycle, but the products are very durable. So if the consumer, I still own many garments of designers that I met, and I'm wearing some of the items the last 10 or 15 years, right? So this is for me example of sustainable solution as well. And then also the other thing that I really encourage my students to do is upcycling. So for example, I have some students that are going to thrift. They are visiting second-hand stores, And then they are purchasing waste, right? Secondhand materials, and they are using these materials to create new collection in a new upgraded light. I will give you example. There is a huge, not huge brand, but really nice brand, well-established brand located in Alabama called Natalie Shanine. They're making luxury wedding gowns from the secondary materials. They are using discarded clothes from Salvation Army stores in order to produce these luxury garments. And the average price of the garment or wedding gown is $1,000, right? So maybe they spend, I don't know, $500, but not hardly 500 to source the textile input, but then their outcome is really profitable and more beautiful garments. So for me, this is also another wonderful solution that I saw in the industry. So there are ways, definitely, and I had the luck to collaborate with many smaller designers, but also if you think about major retailers, for example, if I think about Abercrombie or Nike, and I had a chance to collaborate with both companies, I don't think they are rethinking their design. I really think that they are now trying to find alternative materials. I know Nike is very much invested in certifications, in a smart textiles. So they think that if you have materials that are, and these are plastic materials, right? So these are materials made from fossil fuels. They are recyclable, but they are smart in a way that they are tracking body system and, let's say, heart rate, and therefore this is their main focus: certification and smart textiles. If you think about Abercrombie and Fitch, I don't think they are really invested in anything. They're just trying, for example, to invest now in their sustainability reporting in order to improve their brand image, because they really struggled in the past for discriminative marketing practices. So you can see that, let's say, if from sustainability perspective, they're more invested in this kind of social justice now, not in sustainable design or smart textiles. So you can see that each company has their own solution based on their current situation. And this is also interesting to see, because most of initiatives are not even comparable. I don't know if that makes sense, but I would just like to say that some brands are economically focused, other brands are environmentally focused, and some brands are socially focused.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Any other questions from the participants? Okay, that's it. So on behalf of the organizing team, I thank Dr. Eva for her wonderful presentation. Thank you, Eva.
You're very welcome. I was enjoying, truly.
It was nice, and maybe many participants may have gained some new knowledge from your presentation, I guess.
I hope so. This is the case.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Excuse me,
You're
ma'am.
very welcome, and I hope to see you sometimes in the future again, because we have many commonalities in our research interests.
Yeah. There's one participant. Lisa, you have any question? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I would like to ask you, if you are starting a sustainable brand, do the cost, do the prices like rise normally? Like, is that a default thing if the brand is sustainable? Or can it be a low price? Or can it still be low price even if it's sustainable?
Okay, great question, Lisa. And this is something that is common asked by my students. Honestly, and I will be brutally honest, I think that currently we don't have affordable, sustainable solutions. So to answer directly your question, I would say yes, still sustainability is coming with a premium price. Because let's say if you want to make sure that your materials are good, you have to make sure that they are certified, and every certification costs money. So if you have, let's say, certification that is claiming recycled origin, like global recycled standard certification, it costs company money, right? So then that kind of material will have higher price. Second thing, if you want to have, let's say, good quality material is definitely higher in the price than low quality polyester, let's say, right? So again, higher price. Then you need to have skilled labor, because you know that most of the things in our industry is still manual. So let's say if you're using, I don't know, some kind like Non-Estes Indian brand, I was mentioning them, they're using coconut shell. They have really particular way of producing these buttons. So you probably need some kind of special machines or special trained labor in order to produce that kind of small ingredient, right? Like a button. So there is a high price that is associated with sustainable products. They are still coming with a premium price. If you want to certify your business like Ellen Fisher or B Corp, you have to renew your certification twice within 5 years. It costs company tremendous amount of money. So I would say that also another obstacle to transition to sustainability or circularity is definitely price. And I apologize now, I realize I completely excluded that from this conversation. And thank you, Lisa, for asking that, because price is a huge obstacle. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was very helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Eva, for accepting our invitation and making this webinar a successful one. And we would be happy to be associated with you in future, our university, our department. Thank you.
Definitely. I would like to stay in touch, and thank you so much for attending this session. I was really, truly honored to do my research here, and I really believe that transition to sustainability requires greater collaboration.
Sure.
And I really hope that we can establish some kind of international collaboration in the future, because only through exchange of knowledge we can move forward.
Sure.
Collaborate in silos. I mean, this is not productive. So thank you for your invitation, and I hope to see you sometimes in the future.
Sure,
Goodbye.
sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye. Goodbye.